Well, this first one is, and you said you don't even bother with this, but where do you begin discussing this topic with people?
Well, I
Um,
do have something. If you do want to talk it to
okay,
somebody, you're so right that I'm just looking at them too. You're so right. She's so easy to sound like a conspiracy theorist. Because
it
the thing is,
is.
it is so mad that people think that you must be making it up. This is a big part of why we haven't had good journalism on it. I can tell you, journalists who go and try and pitch this to editors, especially 5 years ago, editors would say this can't be happening. It's
Yes,
ridiculous.
yes,
So we were in that situation where it was so crazy that people were just allowing, if it was less crazy, it might have been easier to talk about it.
yes,
Um, don't don't try to tell the person everything. Like it's very tempting to think, I've got them here now. I'll tell them.
that's
It's
right.
kids. There's terrorizing kids and the sports and
Yes,
this and then to use these things like institutional capture
yes,
and they're backing away slowly at this point.
that's right. That's what I did
So
10 years ago. Yes.
yeah. So I would pick just one or two things,
Hmm.
maybe something that's relevant to them. But if you
Hmm.
don't know something that's relevant to them, sport and kids,
Hmm.
and then say it in ways that turn it back on them and ask them questions because you don't change other people's minds. People change their own minds.
Yes,
And people don't change their mind the first time they hear something. They do it the half dozenth time or the 15th
yes,
time or the 20th time. So what you do, like people have often said to me, God, I thought it was mad when I heard about that from you first, but now I see it everywhere. So what you want to do is to get them ready to see it everywhere. So you might say something like, did you see that thing about that fencing competition? Or, God, I just saw this thing about this pool competition that, the two people in the final were both men. And they go
yes,
like, that can't be happening. And then you say, well, it was happening, and I just don't think it's fair. And then stop.
yes, yeah,
And then
yeah,
let them come back to you or let them see it in the paper.
yes,
And then ask yourself, like, why do they need to know?
right,
Like they didn't know this was happening, and if it unhappens, they'll never have been any the wiser. Like most people just don't need to know
it,
that this ever happened. They need it fixed, and that's a policy
right,
issue. So
right,
focus on policymakers.
right. Somebody's asking if you've noticed any demographics within gender identity, like class, race, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, race is less obvious here in the UK because it's such a majority white country. I just don't feel that I'd know without proper studies
Hmm.
if there's a racial element to it. And those studies, of course, haven't been done. Class is easier to tell you something about because there are some things that we know. So, for example, looked after children, children in care, are
Hmm.
much more likely to end up going to see a gender clinic
Hmm.
than other children. And of
Yeah.
course, I mean, they're, class-wise, they're a particularly vulnerable group, the most vulnerable group of kids, but they're also lower socioeconomic status on average.
Hmm.
And I think that's partly because those are kids who've had very high level of adverse experiences. But I'm sorry to say it's also because social workers are pushing
Yes.
this,
Yes.
and also because kids who are in care don't have parents who
Right.
care,
Right.
by definition. And it's parents who would do anything to stop
Yes.
their children from making a catastrophic mistake. So even if, even
Yes.
if a foster parent thinks this is a terrible mistake,
Yes.
like this kids are coming and going out of their house, maybe it's not their business, and so on.
Right.
Um, so we know that those kids are high level of problems, but also we know that kids, the best of kids, the kids whose parents are, senior editors, lawyers,
Hmm.
government ministers, those people greatly disproportionately likely as well to have kids who
Right.
identify as trans. And
Yes.
that's been a huge problem because they've been part of why this has spread so
That's right.
fast. So I think it's those two bits. But then I just hear, every teacher I know says there are kids who identify as trans in their school, and that's every type of
That's right.
demographic.
Yes. Yeah. There's a question about how Sex Matters is funded. Public funding,
Sure.
private funding,
So
donations.
we're a charity. We're a
Yes.
charity, so it's charitable donations. When we started, it was, I think, like 100% small donations. I mean, it was
Yes.
before I joined, before it
Yes.
was a charity. It was set up as a non-profit company, the way that you can do this
Yes.
before you convert to being a charity. And Maya just went on social media when our boss, Maya Forstater,
Yes.
when she had won her case and said that she was setting up this organization. She had, in effect, been working for something like this free for a while
Right.
and asked people if they would sign up for a weekly email and pay £5 a month for it. And
Mm.
enough people did almost immediately that it was able to give her a salary.
Right.
Now we do have some larger donors,
Oh,
no,
good.
no very big ones,
Okay.
but I mean they're charitable donors. Some say so publicly, some don't, but it's still more than
Yes.
half small donations, 5, 10, or £30 a month.
I don't know if you're
Um,
looking at the Q&A, Helen, but there, she is suggesting, and it's not a bad idea, I suppose, to say that on your website because of all the people that the
I think
accused.
we do. I think
Oh,
we
you
do
do.
say that
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay.
But I mean, as a charity, we have to publish charitable accounts. Now, we haven't done that yet because we
I
haven't been a
see.
charity for a year, but we
Right.
will be. This sort of information will all be in the public domain.
Right.
I mean, I think the really irritating thing about this, as we all know, is all the money's on the other side.
That's right.
Like, all, you know,
That's right. Stonewall and the like
yeah. And I mean,
and the
most women
right as
working in this
well.
field are not being paid with anything. Like, sex matters is unusual in paying anything because we're a formal organisation.
Yes.
There's most of the organisations, like, for Women Scotland, who took that case, they're not
Yeah.
paid. They're women
No,
with jobs. They're volunteers.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just, to state that your money is donations and small donations mostly, it helps to counteract that, you're getting the far right money from America or something. Um, Somebody wants to ask a question about ultra turfs.
Oh, the sort of the infighting, I think.
Yeah, the infighting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
difficult, isn't it? I mean, like, I sometimes think that, women are as capable and as brilliant and as ambitious actually as men.
Hmm.
But of course, we're given a lot less opportunity. So when there's a field that there's a lot of women, like, you've just basically got a lot of people who have, and probably rightly, quite high opinions of themselves and who want to be running things
Yes.
in a rather small space. There's lots of women who should be off being the heads of big corporations if it was a just
Hmm.
world.
Right.
And here they are doing this, and we all have the human feeling, that the tendency to think that our contribution was the outsized contribution. So I think if you added up everybody's idea of what their contribution was, you would come to like 1,000 times more than has actually happened.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks they don't get enough credit and so on. And then you have to take into account that there's an awful lot of damaged people in this space, because a lot of people have come into this because of something terrible that has happened to them. Their husband has transitioned and destroyed their lives and their marriage, their child has cut them off. Like, I hear the saddest stories, and mostly people, they turn in on themselves, but some of them actually are a bit bitter.
Yes.
And then there's people who just disagree on strategy. There's people who just shout at us all the time, hashtag repeal the GRA. And I mean, I don't have a magic wand. I can't make it happen. Like,
Hmm.
if somebody else had a plan for making it happen, that's brilliant. Set up your own organization and do it, and I will not bitch about you.
Yes.
We don't think we can do it. We have a strategy for doing it. If you don't
That's right.
support our strategy, really feel free. Don't donate to us. It's fine.
Yes.
Um, but instead, people think because it's the biggest of the organizations, and I mean, we're still tiny, one full-time
Yes.
member of staff and some part-time
Yes.
ones, they think that it's better to shout at us to try to get us to change our strategy, but we're not going to. We have
Yes.
our opinion of how it should be done.
Yes.
And then a very astute thing Maya said recently to me. She said that it's very hard to accept what has happened and how bad it is and
Yes.
how far the capture has gone and how long it's going to take to fix it. I mean, I think
Yes.
it's going to take at least 20 years to fix it, like it took 20 years to destroy all our institutions. It's at least
Yes.
20 years to rebuild them.
Right.
It's easier to think that those bitches at Sex Matters could fix it tomorrow if they weren't on the gender critical grift. The things I mean, I get accused of being a grifter. Like, I
Wow.
have lost so much money by doing this.
Right.
I was very well paid at The Economist, and it's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing to claim.
That's
And
right.
all these women who are unpaid. So there's
Yes.
people, it's easier to think that we're just getting it wrong. And if we weren't getting it wrong, if we said and did the right things, then we'd
Yes.
be fixed tomorrow.
That's
Than
right.
to face up to the fact that probably we'll still be fighting this until we're not able to work anymore.
That's
So I
right.
think a lot of it is that,
That's
and I mean, all I can say is I try not to take it personally.
yeah.
I mute people or block them.
Yeah.
We have an in joke in our WhatsApp group, which is a quote that something that somebody once said to me when I was still working at The Economist about a particularly irritating correspondent. I'm a saint to put up with this. And we just say, I'm a saint to put up with this, or we put the saint emoji with the halo, and we share it privately, saint emoji,
Right.
move on. There's
Yeah.
no point in
Yeah.
getting
No, it's true. It's absolutely
caught up.
true. And often, yeah, the people who are the critics aren't organizing and doing much themselves. They're just
Yeah,
online.
or if they, and maybe they are, but it's
Or
fine.
there.
I'm not bitching about other people's different
No,
ideas. I wish they wouldn't
no,
bitch about mine, but I can't stop them.
no.
It does bother me when people complain about people who are out under their own name and say that we're not hardline
Hmm.
enough
Hmm.
when they're
Yes,
not
right.
out under their own name. And I mean, I understand why people are private online. It's fine. I'm not saying they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that because I'm out there with my name and my face, and I
Hmm.
know that there's a horde of people
Hmm.
looking to lie about me, misrepresent what I say, and
That's
so on,
right.
maybe I can't be all, you
Yeah,
know, Dame Katie Denise-ish about everything, you know?
I know who that is. Yeah. um,
And I love Dame Katie, but I can't do that.
no,
Dame Katie is anonymous.
that's right. Yes. Yeah. I stopped being anonymous at a certain point a couple of years ago because I was so tired of people being anonymous. Thought,
And it's
okay, it
important that
starts
people
here.
aren't. But I
It
also
starts
think I
here.
understand why people are. I just wish that they'd
Absolutely.
understand that it's a bit different when you're not anonymous.
I'm
Don't
able
expect people who
to,
aren't
yeah,
anonymous.
I don't have children in school and I
Same.
don't feel threatened by work things and all of that. But another question here that someone has that I was thinking about myself too is that our legal system here is in Canada is extremely captured.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure most in the UK is. There aren't at this point any feminist lawyers that I'm aware of, and I've been looking that are. I'm not saying there aren't any feminist lawyers. There are, and I
No,
know
no, no. I
that
do know what you mean. I
they
do.
aren't
Yeah,
public.
yeah,
They aren't being public. They're nervous. They're worried. Some of them for good reason, I'm sure. And I don't think it has to be necessarily someone who defines themselves as a feminist lawyer, but there are, these civil libertarian extreme right lawyers that want to take on these kinds of cases. And so the question is, how did you cultivate the legal
yeah.
expertise and how do people select lawyers and it seems like there's people will have a team of lawyers there on things and I think wow this is
It's
great.
really, really, really difficult. And again, it was just one of those chance things. So the person who had the idea for Sex Matters was a lawyer, a
Ah,
barrister, a lesbian called Anya Palmer.
right.
And Anya was Stonewall's second employee back when Stonewall was still an LGB organization. And so
Yes.
she was involved in one of the early cases in the 1990s that I can't remember the name of it now, that was about not being able to sack people who identify as trans, which I approve of course.
Yes.
Um, but so she was really had her eyes opened to it like 20 years before other people. And at some point in something like about 2015, Anya was talking to some other lawyers, a group of people who agreed with her about things. And she said to them that she thought that we could use a belief discrimination case. She said, why don't we try to take a case for an employee who is suffers a detriment, is fired or whatever, for expressing what are now called gender critical beliefs.
Right.
And so she imagined the existence of Maya before Maya happened. Like they didn't know each other. And then
Hmm.
Maya lost her job at the Centre for Global Development, and she tweeted that she'd lost her job for saying that she didn't approve of gender self-ID, and Anya got in touch with her. So we started with a lawyer. And then Anya just got to know some other people. I guess they set up a WhatsApp group. I don't actually know, but that's the way everything goes like that now, isn't it? You set up a WhatsApp group. And
Hmm.
then gradually new people come up against it. I mean, I know there have been lawyers who've been asked to take cases
Hmm.
whose firms have said they can't.
Yes.
But then maybe 2 or 3 years later, they've gone back for a slightly different case or things have moved and they've been allowed to. And by
Yes.
now, there's starting to be some expertise. It's still a problem. Finding lawyers is a problem.
Yes.
I would say that on the sort of free speech, right, libertarian type, I think a lot of this is going to be won by people like that
Hmm.
because the important thing about the belief discrimination case was it re-established some free speech rights.
Hmm.
And that's the foundational right to be able to talk about this. We can't solve it if we can't talk about it. So that was a
Right.
very astute strategy move, in effect. Anya's a brilliant strategic thinker.
Right.
If you can't talk about this without losing your job, then no one will talk about it pretty much. So that's the
Right.
first thing that you have to do. It has to become much harder to fire people who talk
Right.
about this. And
Right.
if that's a libertarian, right-wing Christian lawyer who does that for you,
Hmm.
then do it that way. Because
Hmm.
actually, free speech, the boundaries of free speech have been set for us by mostly Christian people.
Hmm.
The cake baking cases in both the
Oh yeah.
UK and in the US,
Right.
those are Christians.
Right.
And, like those of us who are secular, I mean, I'm an atheist myself. It's very easy for us to think like, you only live once, why waste my life on this fight? Whereas
Yes.
if you're religious, you think, well, my immortal soul might be at risk here.
Yeah.
And so actually we can expect religious people to be the people who win our freedom of belief, freedom of speech, freedom of expression rights for us.
Right.
So I would focus on that. I would try to like the Amy Ham thing that should never have happened. As
Yes.
long as someone like Amy Ham can go through what she went through, you
Yes.
can't get anywhere. The rest is
No.
all secondary. It has to be
No.
established that you cannot lose your job for talking
No, that
about
one's a
this.
warning to everybody, isn't it? Everybody's now supposed to stay
That's why they
online.
did it.
Yeah.
That's why they did it. They tormented her for 4+ years
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then lost her job. So that's where it has to start
Yeah.
is free speech at work.
Right. Do you have time for two more, maybe?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, there's more than that, but I'm trying to look at ways to combo some of them into one thing. Um, Someone's wanting to talk about the gender ID law that was launched in Canada in 2016 with Jody Wilson-Raybould and
C16.
Justin Trudeau. Yeah, in 2016. Yeah, the law that said there was gender identity, and that's when men started getting moved to women's prisons, etc. But that exists. They say it doesn't exist there, but it exists in Ireland, as far as I know, right? Self ID.
Yeah. Yeah,
And how,
self-ID
so,
is the law in Ireland.
yeah. So what's you know, those of us that don't live over there or haven't spent a lot of time there, there's some countries that are part of the same country government and some that aren't. So
Well, I mean, Ireland isn't. Yeah, so the
Ireland
Republic of
isn't.
Ireland has its own government. The Northern Ireland's part of the UK, but actually it has different laws. The Equality Act doesn't hold in
Right.
Northern Ireland. That is not an interesting fact. The
So
Republic
maybe
of Ireland
Ireland's
is
a
an
good one to
independent
talk about.
country.
How does Ireland, I know you don't live there anymore, but how does Ireland fight this when they have a gender self-ID act? Or
Yeah, with great difficulty, and there's the same issue of lawyers, and it's a so much smaller country. Like there isn't a
yes.
single barrister who will take these cases.
Uh-huh.
There's not a single one.
Uh-huh.
So I do have friends in Ireland who are trying to work out, like there's actually one who's qualifying. She's going to the bar herself in the hope that she can try to take some of these cases, which seems an
Right.
extreme
Okay.
approach, like to have to actually do this yourself. So Ireland brought in self-ID from nowhere. There was no gender recognition at all, and it
Right.
went straight to full self-ID. Amazing lobbying
Same
operation
here.
by the
Same in
yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
And Ireland is a socially conservative country, or at least was until very recently. So
Hmm.
there wasn't a group of men who were seeking to be women. There was one man called Lydia Foy who took the case the whole way to the European Court of Human Rights.
Hmm.
Uh, so there's still very few men who have used this at all. And in some ways that's a
Okay.
problem because people don't see it and they don't know it.
Uh-huh.
And then this strange thing has happened in the last 10, 15 years when Ireland has become super Americanized, like
Right.
as in, you know, democratic liberal type American. So kids are being taught unbelievable degrees of appalling gender bullshit in schools,
Oh, they are.
like as bad as California.
Uh,
But their parents are still small c conservative Christians or, lapsed Catholics or whatever, and
right.
have no idea. So the
Uh,
kids are awful and the schools are terrible on this. Um, but most people still don't know about it. I had an interview appear today in the Irish press for the
mm.
first time in 4 years. And if
Oh,
you're Irish, you know that, if an Irish person does anything of note anywhere in the world, you're written, talked about nonstop for the next year. You're
sure.
invited on telly. I've
Sure.
literally never been mentioned in the Irish press or
Not you.
TV
No.
before.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
me, not me. Yeah. So maybe things are starting to change.
That's
It's hard.
great.
I really think the free speech thing is essential. I
Okay.
would focus all my efforts on that.
Mm.
Whatever you do, have strategy meetings, get lawyers to
Hmm.
brainstorm. What can you
Hmm.
do to
Hmm.
make it impossible for something like Amy Ham to happen again, and
Hmm.
then work from there.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Um, Somebody asked about it's less of a risk in the UK, I understand. It's more of a risk in the US, but it's certainly happening here that there's more extreme right left division
Polarization.
in
Yeah.
in the US, as you well know, in Canada to some degree now, and that certainly started being raising its head more when COVID came, and so right is wanting to take ownership for some of these things. This is, with feminists aren't doing anything, and women, what about this? And as you and I both know, Helen, and you've talked about it. It was left-wing feminists that started the work on this topic and have been fighting for women's rights. And the fact that people don't know that is because it's like you say, nobody puts that in the paper, never has, or on the media, or on the CBC, or on the BBC. And but what's happened as a result of the anger and the people feeling really treated poorly, that they suddenly are, some women who were identified as feminists at some point are suddenly pro-Trump and all in, and you know, there's, can you, has this become an issue ever there? Has there been that kind of an issue there where the right want to take over what women, all the work that
Yeah.
women have done, and have people worked collaboratively in that way or avoided it, or?
I mean, there's great collaborative cross-party working. I'm not a party member myself, but I'm
Mm-hmm,
friends with the women who run the three big, no, four actually, because there's one of the Greens as well.
mm-hmm,
There's women who have, like, there's Conservatives for Women, Labour Women's Declaration, and Liberal
mm-hmm,
Voices for Women. And
mm-hmm.
then there's a Green women's group as well. And they are just incredible women who work together cross-party in a way that I can tell you has never been seen before
Wow,
on
that's
any other
wonderful.
issue. They support each other, they arrange events, they publicize things to each other.
Wow.
They're in WhatsApp groups, the famous WhatsApp groups, making sure that just really thinking like, what are we doing in Wales? What are we doing in Scotland? What are we doing in Westminster?
Okay.
And I don't know how they managed to not be party political on it because we've seen a change of government, of course, during
Sure.
that time.
Yes.
So that I think the fact that this is a more secular country helps.
Yes.
And I don't think being Christian is so strongly associated with one party over the other.
No.
Um, I mean, Trump is obviously an incredibly divisive figure. I mean, I don't even see him as right wing. Do you know what he is? He's a South American semi-dictator. He reminds
Yes.
me so much, so very much of the people that I knew when I lived in Brazil as a foreign correspondent.
Yes.
His style, his outrages, his thinking about tariffs, the whole lot. Like, I mean, I
Yes.
just look at him and I think, oh, you're the sort of person who ruined Argentina, ruined
Yeah.
Venezuela, back when ruined Brazil before the end of the dictatorship. So, I've always seen right through that man.
Yes.
That said, he knows there's two sexes. He saw that there were votes in this. That was a absolute open goal that the other party left for him.
Yes.
I mean,
It was a
I sort of
gift.
take a gift, a total gift. I sort of see the only thing that I can do is have my own integrity and my own
Mm-hmm,
position.
mm-hmm,
And I only campaign on one thing.
mm-hmm,
So I will work not with anyone who on that narrow thing, by any
mm-hmm.
means, not anyone, no.
No.
But like if somebody is willing to say, I would pass a law and this is the law, I will say that is a good law and I will say
Right.
it publicly.
Right.
There may be a test for us on this, by the way, in the next general election, because Reform, who are our, hard right,
Yeah.
insurgent, anti-immigrant, etc., they may do extremely well. I mean, they're
Yes.
currently polling top or near to top. So,
Okay.
this is all coming down the line for the UK. If they write laws that say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, don't do this stuff in schools, protect women's spaces, we will say that they are good laws.
A good law. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I we said that Trump's executive orders were good because they're good. I know the
Yeah.
women who wrote them, they're good.
Mm-hmm. They're not holding, as I understand. I
I
still,
understand they aren't.
I,
No, I
I
mean,
still hear
it's
women
all
are still in,
outrage.
men are still in women's sports, kids are still getting transitioned, and
It
men are
turns
still
out
going in
that he was
women's
just saying
bathrooms.
it. He was just saying it for the headlines,
He
I
doesn't
think.
care
But I
if it
mean,
really
are
happens.
we
No.
surprised? I mean, look at these bloody tariffs. I just see it
Yeah.
as all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just all populism.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
we're non-political. We're a charity by law.
Yes.
We're non-political, and
Yes.
I mean, like,
Got it.
I am speaking from my own position, which is secular, human rights based, reality based, pro
Right.
science.
Right.
On a single issue, I will work with anybody of good faith who isn't seeking to take away people's human rights and who agrees on this narrow issue. So, I mean, I talk quite frequently to Christian groups, for example, but they're
Right.
not like Trump Christian groups.
No.
They're just Christian people,
Right.
That's fine.
Right. Right. Yes. Um, well, we've gone over, Helen. I asked you for 90 minutes and we've gone over by about 7. Do you want to take one more question?
Yeah, one more. Yeah.
Okay. Um, it's hard, because there's more than one. But somebody's asking you, and I know this wasn't an issue with your children, but somebody's asking you for suggestions on how to talk to children, especially teens who are getting indoctrinated or already
Oh gosh,
indoctrinated.
that's so hard. Yeah. I mean, obviously you'd hope that you've already laid a very firm foundation that they can trust you, that you're on their side, those sorts of things. I have by now supported several parents who've gone through this, and I can't say anything that always works. I mean, there's nothing that always works.
No.
And you can be the best parent in the world, and this can still end up in your house.
Yes.
I got an email from a woman a couple of weeks ago, which touched me very much. And she just emailed and she said, I found your book. My child has cut us off, her adult child, 2 years ago, fully transitioned. I know it was a mistake. We haven't heard since. Your book helped because what I took away from it was it wasn't my fault and it wasn't my child's fault. We were just unlucky.
Yes.
So anything I say isn't meant to say that, you screwed up or that I would do better.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, what helps. Don't go in hard, don't ridicule them. Ask them questions, try to get them to explain things to you
Mm-hmm.
In a very soft touch sort of way, and prioritize anything that is an immediate risk. So friends of mine, they discovered that the school had transitioned the child behind their back, a daughter. This girl had been called a boy at school for 18 months before they accidentally found this out. Um, and they then started this awful process of trying to get the school to stop doing such terrible things, but that's a separate one. And then they had to think like how to talk to the daughter who had hidden this from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the daughter said, well, I am a boy. And the other two kids immediately started calling her a boy as well because they're propagandized, obviously. And the mother gave in and decided she was too scared not to, but the father said he just wasn't. And when he talked to me, he said that he was the only human being in the world who still called his daughter a
Mm-hmm.
daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so we talked, and they had been in the process of considering letting her use a breast binder.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a bunch of other things about hair and clothes and names and so on. And I said to them, look, the breast binder is the hard line because that's going to quickly cause permanent damage.
Mm-hmm.
Consider what else you can give up, but say to her that the breast binder is a hard line because you're her parents and you've got to try to stop any permanent harm.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually listened to them on that. And then she said to them, but why does it say on websites that these are harmless?
Mm-hmm.
And they found sources for her that she trusted on how, in other circumstances, like the way that some African groups squash down girls' breasts and how harmful that is. That's actually, that's a crime in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she realized that her parents were right and that they were looking out for her. And that
Right.
was the chink in these activists don't have my best interests at heart. She said,
Right.
like, why are they lying to me? And her mother said, well, I don't know. But I mean, I know I have your best interests at heart and I love you more than anybody else. But, you
Yes.
know, you don't know that about them. And that really upset their daughter hugely. And it made her start to think. And she went down this path of thinking, I know my parents love me. I know they want the best for me. I think they've got a load of things wrong, but they're listening to me, but I won't buy my breasts.
Yeah.
So they bought her like very supportive flattening sports bras. They let her get a pixie cut. They bought her a whole new wardrobe. They did all that sort of thing.
Right.
And then they felt that the panic had been taken away a bit because there was no immediate harm
Right.
and everybody could ease off about it. And then she started coming to them and talking about it. And then, I mean, I think it was quite a long time after, it was like easily a year later, she said to them, I've been thinking about this again. I think it's very sexist. I think, and her
Very
mother was
good.
like, yes. And her
Yes.
mother said, like, she was just going, I'm biting my bloody tongue here. I could have told you that at any point. But no, the daughter had to work it through.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So I mean, okay, that was lucky. There was no medicalization.
Yeah.
They had a very strong relationship. They've got
Yes.
money to make these decisions about clothes and hair and so on. But I've heard versions of that story with different things being the sort of the chink in the armor that makes the
Yes.
kid go, huh, something's
Yeah.
wrong here. That's what you're aiming for.
Yes. Right.
So sorry, to summarize that, two things. One is if there's any immediate harm, take the safeguarding approach of if there's an immediate harm, can I stop the immediate harm? And then I can breathe.
Yes.
Then we can all say that, the emergency is not there. We can go slow here. And then the second one is see if there's ways that you can get them to understand that you are and always will be on their side.
Yes.
And you can't be really very sure of that about other people.
Right. Yes. Absolutely true. Yes. Well, before I thank you, Helen, I just want to say to those people that attended, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
This will also be on our website in a couple of weeks. So for anybody that you have friends, family, colleagues that want to watch, it'll be available. Please go to our website and ask to be on our mailing list if you're not already on the mailing list. If you're able, you can also ask there how you can make a donation. We are now a nonprofit society with a bank account too, so we can receive donations and funding. And we do have some costs for both the webinars and for brochures and documents. We create banners and other materials that we use for education, outreach, and lobbying. Yeah, like I say, the webinar will be available for those who weren't here to see it, or if you want to watch it again. And now I'd like to thank Helen. I know you get so many requests to do interviews and appearances, and I know that's the way you get the word out, and that's part of your work, although not in the mainstream media. But I'm glad there's a chink there in that armor that you're in the Irish Times, and maybe the BBC someday will invite you to come if they haven't already. We really
I haven't.
appreciate that you agreed to speak with us. Your passion, your intelligence, your sense of humor, it's always an inspiration to every time you talk. So thank you from all of us for doing this. It was wonderful to speak to you, and
Well,
truly
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
And,
Thank
it's
you.
a thank you for the women who looked after me when I came to Vancouver in 2020. So
Oh, nice.
I'm
Okay.
grateful.
And
Yeah.
some of them are probably here on this call. Yes. Okay. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right.
Thanks, Helen. Have a
Bye.
good rest of your night.